I learned the hard way. I have to learn by, getting if I don't know if I can say this in the show, but the shit kicked out of you. That's how I learn. So.
I lost over $324,000 in a 6-month period trying to make an Amazon business work. It nearly destroyed my marriage, my finances, and, well, me. And so how did I come back? How did I keep going? And someone asked me that, and it got me thinking about how does anyone come back from a big loss? And the answer is resilience. And then that got me thinking about, well, can resilience be learned? Can we develop a framework that helps cultivate resiliency? And so this show was born, the Resiliency Project, a place where we push pause and on the highlight reel that we see every day on social media and dig into the stories of failure and how to bounce back. And our guest today is the indomitable Rhett Power, executive coach, speaker, mentor, author, co-founder of Wild Creations, his new book, Head Mentals. My wife just got a copy. It's phenomenal. Rhett, welcome to the Resiliency Project.
Thank you for having me, brother. Good to be with you.
Thank you for joining, man. And listen, right at the top, we ask always the toughest questions first. Tell me, Rhett, what was your biggest failure? What was the thing that really just did not work?
Well, where do you begin? Right. My philosophy is there are two things here I'll say is number one, if you're not making mistakes and failing, you're not trying. Number two, my other philosophy is if you're going to make big moves, don't make do calculated moves that aren't going to kill you. I think, you've got to make and try and do different things and try things. I mean, I ran a children's toy company for God's sakes. I mean, we tried all kinds of things, 90% of our products failed miserably. Right. And so, but I think, one of the biggest mistakes, from a money perspective, if that's how we're going to calculate it, we tried at some point to install SAP. That was a complete and utter disaster to the tune of $150,000, $200,000. But, we had product losses. Back then we didn't have all these ways that you could test a product, right? We didn't have 3D printers. We didn't have, we failed. Like I said, 90% of our products failed. That was millions of dollars, millions and millions and millions of dollars in prototypes and patents and, production, ordering product that sat in a warehouse that never sold, right? That kind of stuff killed, it was millions of dollars. So yeah, I mean, we made mistakes all the time and I still make them every day, but those are the ones you can sort of calculate with the big numbers, but yeah.
But then what happens when you get the calculation wrong, right? So you thought you were taking calculated risk, but it just spins out into a place where you had no idea. How do you kind of reel it back in?
I mean, like you said, none of those were business killers, right? And they did spin out. We had product. There's probably some of that product still sitting in somebody's warehouse somewhere, long after we sold that company. But how do you recover? I think it's like you said, it's resilience. It's learning. I mean, we learned from every single one of those. I mean, it actually informed when we started losing millions of dollars because products failed. We switched our model, right? And we started making products that Toys R Us ordered and that Walmart ordered and that Target ordered. So we knew how many we were going to make. We knew how many we were going to sell. We knew how much to, we didn't warehouse anything anymore. We shipped it straight to them. So it actually, over the long term, served the business because those failures got us to the right business model where we didn't have those failures like that anymore. And so, you learn. And if you learn and you fix the business as you learn and you make those tweaks and you make those pivots, then you get to where you're making fewer and fewer and fewer of those things that can, cause the business harm or hurt it. Like you said, hurt yourself, hurt your marriage, hurt your pocketbook. I mean, and we had to, because we had put everything into this business. I mean, we put our 401ks in, we put all of our savings in, right? We burned the bridges, as you say, and burned the boats, right? We didn't have everybody kept asking me at some point, well, what's your backup plan? I didn't have a backup plan, right? This was it. this was the plan. And so we had to figure out how to make it work. So that drove the resilience, that drove the learning, that drove us to be better stewards of our money, better stewards of our business. And so I think that's how you recover. You learn and you pivot and you make adjustments. I'm the kind of guy, I don't know about you, Nik, but I'm the kind of guy that has to put my hand in a fire to see if it's hot.
Yeah.
That's how I learn. I learned the hard way. I have to learn by, getting if I don't know if I can say this in the show, but the shit kicked out of you. That's how I learn. So.
Well, let me ask you this, because it sounds like you had business partners. Did any of your business partners at some point just say, you know what, this is enough. I'm quitting. I'm leaving. And what did it take for you not to be like, you know what, me too? How do you come up with that kind of subset of resiliency where it's like you're watching someone leave, so they're getting out, but you decide to stay in, and it's in a terrible place, right? Your business is in a mess. Maybe your personal life's a mess. How do you dig in and how do you lock in?
Well, fortunately, that happened early on for Pete and I with Wild Creations and with a couple of the other companies that we had. And so the partnership started with 6 people. But when it came time to quit our jobs and actually take the keys and possession of the business that we had bought, the first business that we bought, only Pete and I are the ones that resigned and decided we were going to make that leap. Everybody else was like, the day that we were going to do it was like, I can't do it. I'm having second thoughts. And so Pete and I are the only ones that put everything in and put it all in and went that way. Now, are there moments that you're curled up in a ball in the corner crying because everything seemed catastrophic, every problem seemed sort of catastrophic at the time? Sure. I mean, there were moments there was a moment when we had about $1,000 left in our bank account. Had no idea how we were going to make payroll, no idea how we were going to continue, that I was starting to call contractors to go back to Afghanistan to work as a contractor so I could make ends meet, but we got through it. We persevered. And I think, I don't know if you can teach it. I think we can all be resilient in certain situations. We can all find that inside of us. I think we've got to want it. I think we've got to be motivated. I think, I think you have to have, there's got to be a reason to stay, right? And a reason, just like you, right? You had a reason why you were going down this path, and there was no quit in it, right? There's no quit you didn't have any quit in you. And I think that's what it is. It's like, I had a lot of motivation to stay and make it work.
Well, and listen, I heard while you were down that $1,000, you were sleeping in a van outside the Javits Center. So, I mean, what was that like to build that resilience, to go inside and present as a confident business owner? And I'm not sleeping in a van. I've got a whole team. How do you kind of fake it till you make it like that?
I don't know if it was a fake it till you make it. I don't really like that advice. But I do think it was gut it out until you make it. I think it was keep doing the things that are right, that are going to get you there. I think there's a little delusion. I don't know if it's fake it till you make it. I think there's a little delusional stuff going on in your brain. Like, I'm going to make this work. I'm going to make this work. I know I'm on the right path. I know I'm doing the right things, the right activity, and we're going to get a break. And so I think that's what helped us show up in a way that was confident and helped us persevere and helped us gut it out, was that we knew we were doing the right thing. We knew we had a good product. We knew we needed to get it in front of the right audience. We needed some advocates to help us do that. We needed, like you were talking about that story, we came out of that toy show as a $9 million company. And because we had contracts with Brookstone that we made right on the spot. We had contracts with Toys R Us that we made right on the spot. And it shifted our business completely, obviously. But we were sleeping in the van, and we knew that if we kept going, we kept pushing, that we would get that break. And it was the person that actually talked us into going to Toy Fair that gave us that break. It was one of our only clients. You know, she had gotten elected as the small toy store of America, and they have an association. She stood up in their annual general meeting. This is in 2008 during the recession. So this is the only thing in my store selling. You better buy it because it's going to sell. It's the only thing in the toys business that's selling right now. Like I said, we came out a $9 million company because we had 400 new clients, and you know, so we got the break. But if we hadn't delivered to her, slept in our van, and delivered her product, and it was a terrible business model because FedEx wouldn't ship it, UPS wouldn't ship it. We were driving our little Chevy vans to her. She was like in Iowa from South Carolina. You know, terrible business model. But that's what got us to break, and we knew that would at some point get us to break. And so, delusional, yeah, that's delusional. That was really delusional. But we got, you know, we got a break.
Yeah, but I mean, you kind of have to be an entrepreneur. And so, listen, that's a great segue into sort of where we maybe probably should have started the show, but we never do. So, Rhett, tell us a little bit about who you are, where you come from, your background, and how you got to where you are.
You know, I studied history in school, and I left. I was in the Peace Corps, and I came out of college. I was did Peace Corps, then did U.S. government work, USAID. In Central Asia, I spent some time and tours in Afghanistan. Spent about 7 years in the region, and then every Friday night, a colleague and I talked about starting a business. He was a Georgetown business grad. I was looking for that next thing. I listened to my gut, and when my gut says, "Hey, it's time to make a move and do something different, to challenge yourself." He and I have been talking about it for a couple of years with a bunch of other guys on a Friday night, eating pizza and drinking beer. And we were just finally like, hey, we got to put up or shut up. We got to stop talking about this if we're not going to do anything. So like I said, 6 of us said, yeah, it's time to do it. We're going to do it. We wanted to start by buying a business. We found this little one product toy company. We also looked at a dead body removal company that had a 3 million EBITDA. We looked at some construction stuff. We looked at a bunch of different things. This little one product toy company really lit us up. We resigned. Pete and I were the only ones that did it. So we bought the company. We spent 3 years trying to figure out the right business model, the right shipping model, the right production model. We made that toy ultimately toy of the year in the United States. And then we were able to leverage that into, ultimately we built about 120 products. And, we worked with Shark Tank. We worked with Target, Walmart, Animal Planet. We did all kinds of stuff, mostly science and nature toys. We made a lot of the stuff at Toys R Us and Target, in their science and nature sections. We also bought a tequila company somewhere in there and sold that. We figured we got a distressed company. We turned it around, sold that. We had a gift company. It was an accessory to the toy company. When we had downtime, we had a manufacturing operation in China. So we also made non-toy season, we made like gift store gifts for Hallmark and a bunch of other things. So grew that into, over 100 million and sort of, and sold the toy company, the gift company, and then the tequila company. So, that's sort of where, and that led to where I am now, which is coaching and writing and speaking about entrepreneurship and leadership. And one of the things that's a really good point, and I didn't get to it, when you talked about the mindset, you talked about how did you get through all that?
Yeah.
One of the reasons we wrote this new book, you mentioned it in the opening, Headamentals, which are the fundamentals for your head in terms of leadership and business. I think for the most part, maintained a really good headspace. And we maintained a really good mental kind of, we all have self-talk. We all talk to ourselves. Yep. I think throughout that whole process, what I learned about my mental space and how I talk to myself, when that stayed positive, my interactions and my leadership and my ability to get my team to do what we needed to do was spot on. And it helped lead us through the recession. It helped lead us through product failures. It's when this all gets messed up and the conversations we're having with ourselves and the language we're using and how we show up and all that, when that gets all messed up, we didn't do well. We didn't focus. We didn't do the right things. And so I spent a lot of time making sure that I'm in that right space so that I can show up and make good decisions, show up as a leader the right way. And so that's what I work on now with leaders. And that's why we wrote that book. But yeah, I went off on a tangent.
Well, no, that's phenomenal. I'd love to touch a little bit more on the mindset, right? Because you and I are both big believers in sort of the think and grow rich philosophy. And so how did you stumble into that? Because for me, it was, there was nothing left, right? I was at rock bottom. I figured, you know what? I might as well give this, gratitude stuff a try. And my life changed appreciably very quickly after I started keeping a gratitude journal, really staying positive, greeting problems with joy and saying, look, this is a problem, but we'll fix it, right? We'll get through it instead of sort of getting in my head and beating myself up. So what was your journey to that sort of side of business, as I call it, sort of the mentality side, and really thinking about, if I just focus on my mindset and controlling what's internally, my external world just flourishes.
Yeah. I was having a really interesting conversation with my stepmom the other day. And I told her at some point, I said, well, that's not, we were talking about growing up and all that stuff. And I said, well, I've always had a healthy ego. And that's true. And so I really don't let, I don't really let those bad times, I learn, I reflect, I analyze, I break it down, but I don't let those tough times define me, and I don't let them, what I always had in the back of my mind, and this is sort of weird, but I always know, and even today, like if everything failed, right, and I lost all the money and I lost everything, I'm actually really employable, right? I could go and sell. I could go do something else and I would make it. And so I've always had that in the back of my mind, is like, why not be aggressive then? Like, go out and try really hard. And if I need to, I've never been scared of work. And so like, I know I can go out and get something else if I had to work somewhere. I wouldn't like it, right? I wouldn't enjoy working for someone else or doing something I don't want to do, because I've designed a life that I love and I've designed it purposely to do what I want to do, how I want to do it. But could I? Yeah. So I always knew that, like in my 30s and the 40s when we were trying these things, I always knew like I could go back and do so if I had to. Right. Mm-hmm. So that's given me a little bit of confidence in being able to be positive about what I'm doing, be in the right headspace as much as I can. We all have negative self-talk and it all gets in our way. But for the most part, with the way I've looked at it in the book, there's a system to get yourself back in that right headspace. And that's what we share in the book. Like I've used that in my own life to get myself out of those funks that you get in sometimes. Right. And I just have to learn to recognize that it's there and that it's getting in my way. And I've learned better to recognize it as I get older and hopefully wiser, which is doubtful, but I like to say that. But, I don't know if that answered the question, but.
Well, no, absolutely. And I think it's so important for people to understand that it's really up to you, right? Your whole life is up to you. Everything is a decision, and you get to decide how you react to something, how you control your emotions, and then also ultimately what you do to take that next step. Rhett, what is that system? You alluded to it. I don't want to give away the book. Can you give us like sort of high overview of what that system looks like to get yourself back in that good headspace?
It's creating a new habit, right? Because here's the thing. We have 6,200 thoughts a day. We have over 5,000 of those are negative or repetitive, keyword repetitive. That's at 1.8 million thoughts a year that are negative or repetitive. So you can see where we can get into some real patterns in our lives, whether it's in our relationships, our partnerships, or partnerships with our significant other. Like it gets in the way. It can get in the way of a lot of things, right? And we can get into habits. We can get into habits about our health. We can get into habits about all that stuff, right? if you had somebody that was mean to you in grade school, or a teacher that told you weren't going to amount to anything, or a coach that said you were shit, whatever. Like we all have those sort of traumas that we carry with us, right? And those narratives that we tell ourselves. So the system is called the 3C method. Is catch, confront, change. It sounds super simple, but it's super hard because it's a habit. It's about changing the habits that we have. And really what it is, it's about learning, number one, to catch those thoughts. Like I make people journal for 2 to 3, 4, or 5 weeks to sort of start tracking when we have these negative thoughts, right? And then just writing them down in a journal, and then putting a little tick mark every time you have that same one, right? And so you start getting to an idea of those narratives, right? You start recognizing those narratives, and that takes some discipline, and it takes some desire to want to change. If you can start journaling it, and we can start seeing the patterns and start catching the narratives, then we can start challenging them, right? One that's really common is, do I belong in this room? Imposter syndrome. You hear a lot about that. Or, am I good enough, fast enough, smart enough to accomplish this? All of those things that we are pretty common narratives. If you can start seeing those patterns, and you can start challenging, like let's take imposter syndrome, for example, right? There's not a room I don't belong in. And now I believe that because I've built companies. I've been successful. I've done the things that I deserve to be in the rooms that I'm in. And I know that now. So there's no way I'm ever going to have that narrative in my brain or let it persist that I don't belong in that room. Right. And so, it's then, when you start challenging those narratives and you see the truth, right, you can see that you do belong, or that you are smart enough, or you are, that you're capable of being and doing whatever it is you want to do. Then you can start changing the narrative, and that final step, right? And you can start doing this faster. So a lot of this has to be done in business the way we're moving today, right? You got to be able to, like, when you walk in that room and you have that instant thought, oh, I don't belong here. You got to be able to challenge that quickly, confront it, change it, so that you can live up to your potential and you can feel at ease in that room, that you feel at ease to speak up if you want to speak up, to add your contribution. So that's the system. It's so super simple sounding. The words are simple, but the habit of changing it, confronting it, or catching, confronting, and changing is hard, and it takes some discipline and desire to want to change.
That so powerful, so powerful. So, Rhett, we end the show with the same question every time we do it. Tell me, what does resiliency mean to you?
It means that you want to accomplish what you. I look at it from a business standpoint, but it's about having the grit and the perseverance and the desire to accomplish the things that you're facing the obstacles with. And I think that's special. I think not everybody can do it. Not everybody has it. But for me, it's about having the courage and the grit and the ability to continue in the face of adversity. And I think, I don't know, maybe all kinds of things wrapped up in that, but it's having that no quit kind of, I'm gonna get through this, and I'm gonna survive, and I'm gonna be better and stronger. And it's that mindset that's how I'm gonna show up. That's how I'm gonna show up in the world. And for me, that's how I've resolved to live. And so maybe to me, it means the resolve to live how I want to live and work how I want to work, and with who I want to work with. And maybe that's what it means to me. That's a good question. I never really thought about it in that context, but yeah.
Well, that's what we're trying to do here, right? We're trying to get to the bottom of, well, how do you make that a habit, right? How do you make this a framework so that it's repeatable and teachable, right? That, I can teach you how to then think your way through this, right? Because ultimately, as we believe, all is mental. Rhett, this was an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for being here. Head Mentals, where can we find it? Tell the people.
You can get it anywhere, man. Head Mentals, it's just like it sounds. It's a kind of a unique spelling, but it's on Amazon. It's in bookstores. You can get it off the Head of Mentals website. You can get it off my website, Yeah, go get your copy. It's in Audible. It's on, paperback form. It's audio or Kindle. So it's in all the formats. So however you like to consume your stuff. And you can also, by the way, you can also have us come and help your team get the right head of mentals, because not only is it about self-talk, it's about team talk, which is another concept in the book. And believe me, if you have negative self-talk as a leader, your team has negative self-talk. So we can hire us to help you solve that problem.
I love it. Rhett Power, thank you so much for being here. For everyone out there, this has been the Resiliency Project. We'll see you next time.